Hello everybody, and welcome to the fifth video in a series where I'm walking you through the midterm project. Just to take a step back and have a look at what we did at the end of video 4, we created a couple of variables. And the reason we did is because in order to answer question 3b, we needed to have an hour variable and we needed to have a day of week variable. And so what we did was we used this date and time of report column to create a new time variable. We wanted this in military time. If we click a cell, we'll see that this is the information that's underlying this data. And so we couldn't search for text that appeared prior to the colon here. So what we had to do was change the format in a new column, which we did, so that it was text. And then we used the formula to pull out all of the text before the colon, and that gave us an hour variable. We also created a day of week variable by using the weekday formula based on the information that was provided here. So now we have a variable that's capturing the day of the week that an incident occurred. And again, this is so we can answer question 3b, which asks us for counts of each crime type by day of week and hour of day for each dorm room. And so we'll go ahead and start answering this question. So I'm going to go ahead and select my data. And then I'm going to insert a pivot table. I'm going to keep these selections the same and click OK. We'll have a new sheet pop up, and I should have mentioned this to you earlier. You should really be keeping track of your tabs, as I mentioned in a video a couple of weeks ago. You should be keeping track of your tabs and labeling them so you know exactly what's included in each tab. I'm just demonstrating this for you here, so I haven't been doing that, but hopefully you've been keeping track. But in terms of getting the counts of each crime type by day of week and hour of day by dorm room, the first thing we would do is click the location 1 box. That will then appear in our rows column. And then I'm going to pull down the values here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the crime category variable. I'm going to put that in my rows. So now what I have is each of the dorms, and I have the breakdown of other property and violent crimes for each of the dorm rooms. And now what we can do is get rid of the dorms that we're not working with because they're not in our top 3. So Chestnut's in our top 3, Holly Point, and Mimosa. All right. So this is the first step to answering 3B. We've got our dorm rooms and we've got a breakdown of the types of crime that occurred at the dorm rooms. All right, so I would provide this information as a table in your report, because this is a good way of examining differences across the dorm rooms, even if I don't specifically ask for this table. And now to answer the first question, which is we want to know what the counts of crime were per day of week per dorm room. What we would do is first select location 1. We've got our dorm rooms, and then we would select day of week and then pull day of week down to values. Right, so now we have a count for each dorm room for each day of the week. Right, so that is the first part of question 1. We also want to do this for hour of day. And so how we would do this is we would switch out day of week for hour of day. And then we'd pull that down to the values field. And so we'll get a count. Now something to point out here is that if we don't have an hour included in our data, it's not going to show a 0. So it's just showing those hours that are actually included in our data set. So this does make it a little bit complicated to make a line graph that depicts trends over hours of the day, but I'll show you how you can do that. But first what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to where I had the day of the week shown, and I'm going to work through creating a chart for you, or a chart that is showing this the trends over the course of the day. And now you'll also notice that it's the case that in certain instances we don't have crimes that were reported on a particular day of the week. So for example, at Chestnut Hall there were no crimes that were reported on a Sunday, and so it's not appearing in our pivot table. How we can make this appear is we can right click in our cells, select field settings, select layout and print options, and select show items with no data and click OK. And now you'll see that Sunday through Saturday appears for each of our dorm rooms. However, now we see that there are no zeros here, there's just blank cells, and so we've got to change that. And so what we would do is we would right click in a cell in our pivot table options, and then we would make sure that we have for empty cells show, we would have that box ticked, and here we'll just enter a 0 and click OK. And now we have complete data. So we can create a bar chart that's showing the counts of crime for each dorm room by each day of the week. All right, so to do that, we'll go ahead and go to pivot chart. We'll do a clustered column and click OK. And so recall in the directions I tell you to not include all of the dorm rooms in your bar chart, but to have a chart individually for each dorm room. So how we would do that is just select one dorm room at a time. And now our chart is just showing the counts for each, or this one dorm room here for Chestnut Hall. Right, and so you would repeat those steps for the other dorm rooms, right? So I'd go ahead and I would deselect Chestnut, and I would select Holly Point Commons, click OK. I've got the chart that's required for that dorm room as well, and do that for the final dorm room. Right, so that would be how we do this for day of week. And now we'll work on hour of day. So we'll go ahead and uncheck day of week, check hour, and then pull hour down. And so because we changed the options already, we now have to change the options to show those fields that don't have any values, right? So that don't have any data. So we'll right click, we'll go to field settings, layout and print, show items with no data, and click OK. Now we're going to have every hour of the day, and they are filled in with zeros whenever that's the case. Right, so this is how we would format the data, and now we've got to switch to a line chart, because what I'm asking for hour of the day is that you provide me with a line chart, not a column chart. So what I can do is right click here, choose to change the chart type, and then I will go with a line and click OK. And so we've got our trend over the course of the day for Holly Point Commons. So now all you'd have to do is do this for the other dorm rooms. So I'd uncheck Holly Point Commons, and I'll check Chestnut. Click OK, and you've got your chart for Chestnut for crime at that dorm room over the course of the day. Right, so that takes care of 3B. What we'll do is I will end this video here, and I'll start one that's going to get into how you can explain trends over time by providing percentage change from the first month to the last month of the data.